pitch sequencing, pitch calling, um, all those kinds of things. Everything I'm going to be talking about is more so from the pitching or catching side of it. Um, as a hitter, I don't want to talk too much about it. I don't like to necessarily teach like guess hitting, trying to guess what pitch is coming. I know some hitters can be really successful that way. I just think it's more difficult. But it is still important as a hitter to kind of have an idea of what the pitcher and catcher are trying to do to you when you're up at the plate. So if you're not a pitcher or catcher, really, you can still hopefully get something out of this in that aspect. Pitch calling is not really something that we get to talk about a whole lot. And it's something that I personally think is really important because quite literally it involves every pitch of the game, right? So there's a big jump from it from, Little League or you guys coming up from like 13U. I know it's a little bit better now that, you're allowed to throw breaking balls and off-speed pitches and stuff like that at the 13U level. That's new, but even at that level, still it's kind of throw the big kid a curveball, right? So it becomes pretty important at the 15U level, and it's something that as you progress, it only gets more and more important as you get on to 18U level, and then hopefully the college level and after that. First and foremost, I just wanted to say I'm a big believer in having confidence in whatever pitch it is that you're throwing. I know that that's something that I specifically struggled with a lot, especially once I got to college. I assumed that, I always had to throw what the catcher put down, or what if the coach is calling the game, or whatever. And that's something that'll differ depending on what team you're on. I know some coaches will say, if I'm calling a pitch, you're throwing it. But I'm not going to say that. And I don't know if many coaches here will. What I always like to tell my guys is if you are, or if I'm calling a pitch and you want to throw something else, you can do that. But then that's on you at that point, right? If you give up a tank, then I knew better than you. But I always like to say that I think it's better to throw the wrong pitch with confidence than it is to necessarily throw the right pitch without it, right? So every time as a pitcher, every time the ball leaves your hand, you should have 100% confidence in what that pitch is. And if that means shaking off a catcher or, stepping off the back of the mound, getting your signs again, then that's what you got to do. When we're talking pitch calling, I know Jordy always likes to say, it's not just what pitch you're throwing, it's where you're throwing it, right? It's going in, going out, going up, going down, and adding and subtracting too, right? So, throwing your curveball and then throwing a slower one, or, taking a little bit off your fastball here or there. And that's why fastball command, fastball control is, obviously such a big thing of everything we try and do with our pitching, right? If you can go in or out with confidence, that can add a lot to what you're trying to do on the mound. With that in mind, especially when you're trying to learn some of these things, you always want to have in mind what you're trying to do and why that is, right? If you're trying to go in on a hitter, why, right? What does going in on a hitter do? What does going away on a hitter do? What does going up, raising his eye level, right? And so with that, a couple things kind of go together, right? If we're going in with a fastball, right, that tends to speed up the hitter's eyes, right? Because you got to get that inside fastball more out front than you otherwise would down the middle or away, right? So therefore, as the hitter, right, they have less time to react. So going in tends to speed things up. Likewise, same thing going up, right? You got a little bit less time to react, right? You see it in the MLB a bunch now, guys swinging and missing at that high fastball, right? And that's because you got to react to that a little bit quicker. So you want to kind of do those things in tandem. If that's the goal of your fastball, is to, speed up the batter's eyes, right? To get him to swing and miss because you're hoping that he's late. You want to kind of work those things together, right? You want to go in and you want to go up, right? Because then you're speeding it up in and you're speeding it out up, right? You don't, very rarely are you going to want to go up and away, right? Because that, the up and the out kind of cancel out, and it's more so timing wise like a fastball, more so down the middle. The opposite of that is always going to be true then with an off-speed pitch, right? Very, very rarely are you going to want to throw an off-speed pitch inside to a hitter, right? You're throwing a changeup, you're throwing a curveball. You see that a hitter's out on his front foot, trying to slow things down on him, right? Going in is going to kind of, counteract that, especially with like changeups, right? That's why typically as a right-handed pitcher, right, you want to throw that changeup more so to lefties and more so on the arm side of the plate because it's going to move that way, as opposed to throwing it in and then you're slowing them down, but it's also inside, so they react fast and they're able to get that out in front, right? A lot of what pitching is, I don't know who said it, but it's like a pretty famous quote, right? Hitting is timing and pitching is upsetting timing, right? So that's why, again, going back to that, adding, subtracting, in, out, up, down, that's why that's so important to be able to do. I think I've read some different things saying that, like, the difference in terms of reaction speed to an up and in fastball versus a low and away, can be anywhere from like 8 to 10 miles an hour reaction time difference. So, whether you're throwing hard or not as hard, you can still add and subtract with that good command with that location. The timing is also, why I like to think that, one of the most important pitches to be able to learn how to throw is a good changeup, right? Even at young ages, some hitters anyway can pick up a curveball out of the hand, but a changeup, it looks the same as the fastball, right? You're not going to have that same hump or see it pop out of the hand that sometimes you get, with that breaking ball. So if what you're trying to do on the mound is upset timing and, fastball changeup, you can get away with a lot there, right? I've seen pitchers just throw fastball changeup all game, and you see the hitters, they're on their front foot, they're getting blown away, they're they can't deal with it, that change of timing. And so I think, especially at this level at 15U, that's something that a lot of our pitchers need to work on, and need to take pride in, right? Take pride in throwing a good changeup. I know everybody wants to light up the radar gun, and you should want to do that, but having that changeup, that good changeup, complements that a lot, right? And throwing that changeup too can speed up kind of your fastball, right? If especially if you're like throwing it with 2 strikes to put a hitter away, right? If a coach sees that and tells his team, hey, 2 strikes, he's going to his changeup, and then you go to that fastball, right? Boom. Now, even if your fastball isn't a plus velocity, it's still going to play up like it is because they're looking off speed, they're looking that changeup. Which kind of brings me a little bit to my next point here, which is we can't be too predictable as pitchers, right? We can't fall into patterns, right? Patterns are easy to pick up. And when they pick up on those patterns, hey, he's starting every lefty off with a fastball away, right? Now a good hitting team is going to see that, and they can see that sometimes by the 3rd or 4th hitter of a game, right? That's why it's so important that on our side offensively, we have our hitters communicate and talk to each other about, hey, what'd you see? What did the pitcher try and do to you? Because if you can pick up on those tendencies, it's huge for a hitter, right? So try to not fall into patterns. And that, I think, is one of the things that Peach and I have kind of seen with catchers coming up from 13U or that transfer in from Little League or whatever, is that they fall into patterns, right? Fastball, 2 strikes. Okay, now we'll go to the curve, right? And we can't be like that. So we've got to kind of keep the hitter guessing. Kind of brings me to my next point too. Yes, we have to rely on the fastball, right? But we also want to rely on all of our pitches. And if you have a pitch that you think is really good and you get lots of swings and misses at, you can throw for a strike comfortably, right? It's okay to throw that pitch more, right? And in some cases, even more than your fastball, right? You want to throw your best pitch as much as possible, especially if it's like a late and close situation, game on the line. Maybe you're coming out of the bullpen, or even if you're a starter trying to finish off a game or get out of a jam, right? If you ever are getting beat, you want to get beat with your best, right? And that is not necessarily the same for everybody, right? Some people have good fastball. Some pitchers do rely on their fastball, right? Like Jacob deGrom, he's a guy who can, Justin Verlander, guys who can pump 99, 98, 100 late in the games. And then you get other pitchers who their best pitches are other pitches, their changeup, their curveball, their slider, their cutter. And that's what you want to rely on the most in those tight spots. I've always had coaches say, if you're going to get beat, you're going to get beat with your best. So that's a little bit just speaks to the importance of knowing yourself and what kind of pitcher you are when you get on the mound, right? I was never a guy who was going to blow hitters away. So when I got into jams and tight spots, I had to rely more on my changeup, my curveball, as opposed to like trying to really rear back for an extra mile an hour or two here and there. So just kind of figure that out in bullpens and things like that. When you're throwing live to hitters indoors or whatever, try and start to figure out what kind of pitcher you are, or if you're not sure, what kind of pitcher you want to be, right? That's the kind of thing that Peach or me or Jordy or whoever can talk to you about if we see you throw a little bit, right? Hey, like, how do I attack hitters? What kind of things should I be going at? What should I be trying to do to these guys? I don't really know. Pitcher counts versus hitter counts, something else I was just going to talk about a little bit, right? As a hitter, right, we get into hitter counts, and we tend to sit fastball, right? Oh, it's 3-1. I'm getting a fastball here. And on the pitching side of things, we talked a little bit about not being too predictable, right? So what we want to do when we fall into the hole of being in those, the hitters ahead 2-0, 3-1. I like to teach my pitchers, again, it's best to throw your best pitch or the pitch that you are most comfortable with in that spot. Some pitchers, especially if you know that a hitter, big hitter, runners in scoring position late in the game is amped up 2-0, 3-1, he goes, I'm getting a fastball here, right? If you're a guy who has control of your changeup, right, that's a pretty good time to drop one in, right? You get the guy to do like a Bugs Bunny swing where he screws himself into the ground because he's so far out in front of it, right? Because he's trying to jump on something, catch out front, hit a double, pull a double in the gap. So again, when we fall behind, you need to, think about what's worked for you that game. And it might not always be the same. Some days you're going to go out and you're going to be throwing gas, and that's all you're going to need. You're going to be pumping fastballs by hitters. Hey, 2-0, 3-1, here it is, hit it. Other days you might not have that same control of it, or so you gotta kind of roll with the punches, go with the game, figure out what it is that's working for you in that spot. And like I said, that might not always be the same. Some other things here. Don't help hitters out. And this is something that I know I drilled into my catchers this year. I don't know if Maddie's on here or not, but I talked to him a lot about it. If a hitter is going to show that he can't make an adjustment or he can't, hit a certain pitch or in a certain spot, right? As a catcher, as a pitcher, you want to attack that weakness, right? And it's not, oh, this guy can't hit a curveball. Okay, we'll throw him a first pitch curveball and then throw him a fastball, right? You see a guy take a bad swing, look silly, right? You gotta, as a pitcher, you gotta make that guy prove that he can hit it. And so, and it's not always a pitch, right? Sometimes it's a location, right? Some guys just their swing, they can't get to that inside pitch, whether it's a fastball, whether it's a breaking ball, whatever. Some
I'm
guys
listening to a
can't lay
baseball
off.
thing. I'm gonna mute for a second.
Some guys can't lay off of anything up, right? So if you see that, why would you throw anything else if you know they're going to chase a fastball up with the eyes, right? So until a hitter proves that, they can, react to that and adjust and change that that flaw and fix it on the fly, which is a hard thing to do. As pitchers, our jobs are to attack that, even if that means doubling up on a pitch, right? Say, a guy can't hit a fastball up, like I was just talking about, and you got him in a 1-2, 0-2 count, and you try and go up, and you miss way up, or you try and rear back a little bit and you end up throwing it in the dirt. Go right back to it, right? You're up in the count, you got pitches to play with. Don't suddenly throw him something that he has a better chance of hitting just because you didn't execute that first pitch. It's okay to double up on pitches if you think you're throwing it for a reason, if you're confident in it, right? Same thing. 0-2 breaking ball. This guy looked dumb on my first curveball that I threw him. I threw it in the dirt. So what? Double up on it. Throw it again. And that does a couple things, right? It shows a lot of confidence in yourself. And it allows you to kind of be your own coach in a sense, right? If you're on the mound and you spike a curveball and you go back to it rather than just, okay, fine, I tried, now I'm going to throw my fastball. If you go back to that same pitch, you double up on it, right? Now you're trying to correct that on the fly without having to, burn a mound visit or, just kind of put that pitch in your back pocket and then talk to your coach when that inning's over. And just in general, that's something that we want to do with pitching, right? We want to kind of let the ball be our feedback in a sense, right? If you're going in and you miss, why didn't that go where I wanted it? Okay, I'm going to really figure it out. I'm going to keep my shoulder in, whatever it is, and fix that and correct that on the fly. Couple other things here. In the pitch sequencing, it's kind of like a newer idea, I guess, or at least the name for it is new now that we have kind of like the technology to track it, but pitch tunneling. But that's also something that has kind of the idea of it has been around for a long time, right? And so what pitch tunneling is coaches used to say, having your pitches work off of each other or play off one another, right? So you want to try and make your pitches look as similar as possible or start in the same spot, right? If you throw, a two seam and then a cutter and, they start in the exact same spot, right? One pitch is going to break this way, one pitch is going to go that way, right? And they look exactly the same until they're here and then they split, right? So that's what pitch tunneling is. And if you can start trying to kind of look for that, and I like to have my pitchers and tell the players I coach to try and do that in bullpens, right? Practice, okay, I'm going to throw this fastball low and away, and then I'm going to throw my changeup off of it. So I'm going to start my changeup in that same spot, and then it's going to dive out of the way, right? Or, what a lot of pitchers in the MLB are trying to do now is they throw those fastballs up, and then they throw that big 12-6 curveball, and, the fastball stays up high, curveball starts the same and then drops off, and you get those swings and misses. So that's something that, you can kind of work on. You got to be able to visualize a little bit in your bullpens in order to get that to work. But it's something that you can really benefit from a lot if you learn how to do it and when to do it and can do it kind of properly. Last thing I had to touch on is reading swings. And that's something that the pitcher can do and the catcher can do. The reading the swings that I like to do as a pitcher when I'm personally pitching is more so, I mean, one, obviously looking for, if a guy has that hole in his swing, if he looks stupid on a pitch. But, in terms of timing, if a guy's late, if a guy's early, right? If a guy's early, they're gonna pull everything pull side, right? If they're late, they're gonna hit balls the other way. And if you do that and you see that, you want to play off it, right? If a guy's late on a fastball, right, you don't want to slow his eyes down and give him a chance to hit something, right? You want to, again, don't help him out, attack that weakness. He's late. I'm going to keep throwing fastballs. I'm going to keep attacking with fastballs, right? And again, like we talked about earlier, in, out, up, down, that would mean, oh, okay, he's late. He just fouled one off oppo. Okay, I'm going to go in and up with a fastball here. And then the opposite of that is if you see that a guy's early, you can kind of tell when they're lunging on their front foot, or like I said, yank one way foul pull side, right? That's when you want to drop like a changeup or a curveball, or even just go away with that pitch instead of maybe trying to go in. And that's something that I think it's kind of easy to look for in terms of some of the things that you can look for when you're reading your swing. And then catchers play a really big role in reading swings as well, right? And that's why I think, especially as you get to higher and higher levels of baseball, most of the time, almost always really, catchers call the game, right? Because they can see these little tiny things that, the pitcher can't even see, or the coach on the bench definitely can't see, right? So you're looking for things like, is the guy, is he choking up, right? You see a batter choke up a little bit, right? He probably knows he was beat by a fastball, right? Or, if you see a guy crowding the plate, that means they're probably looking away, right? They're taking that outside pitch away and they're going to try and pull it now, right? So you want to try and counteract those things. If you see a guy crowding the plate, trying to jump on that outside pitch, maybe it's a hitter who, can't go the other way. All they can do is pull. And they know that, so you're feeding them away. They move up on the plate a little bit, right? Now you want to bust them in because now they can't get to that pitch anymore. And those are just small things that take a lot to see, right? Or sometimes you'll see it even at 15U where you got a guy who's pumping pretty good in there, right? And the batter kind of he digs in and then he kind of takes a half step back, right? That guy wants no part of that at bat. Attack him with fastballs. He's he doesn't want to catch up to that velo. So that's when you keep attacking. But some of those last things, like the choking up, the crowding the plate, those are the kinds of things that it takes a lot of work to see as a pitcher, and that's the kind of thing that a catcher kind of has to be on the lookout for and try and notice. And my last point here is just that's why it's so important that you communicate with your catcher, right? The more a pitcher and catcher are on the same page, that's great. The more they communicate, the more they kind of talk about what they want to do to the hitters, right? I know, at least we do it at the 15U level where our pitcher and catcher, they don't warm up with the rest of the team, right? They kind of hang out in the dugout, right? What should they be doing then? They should be talking about game plans, right? If you know anybody on the other team, right? What does this guy hit well? What does he not hit well? Or, if it's a new team you're traveling and it's somebody you've never played before, then just talk about yourselves, right? What are my strengths as a pitcher? What felt good last time I was out? What looked good in my bullpen this week? What maybe do I have to find once I'm out there? Those kinds of communication, right? That's why we hold back the pitcher and catcher from our warm-up, right? So they can have that time to communicate and kind of go over some of those things. And that's, obviously a huge part of pitchers and catchers kind of working together. So I know that was kind of a lot. I just threw a lot at you guys. But like I said, there's a lot to kind of talk about when it comes to game calling. Peach, anything to add?
Yeah, I think I had a pitching coach once, and I've actually hit off of him a couple times now as I've gotten older. And one thing he used to always say, and what he does a really good job of, is he doesn't think like one pitch ahead. He's thinking like 2 or 3 or 4 pitches ahead. Like he's already thinking about how he's going to get you out, right? And then he just tries to execute the pitches to the best of his ability. And he was very good at it, but like even his misses would be productive misses, right? Like if you're starting in at bat, outside corner fastball, and then like you should be thinking, okay, I'm going to go outside corner fastball, then I'm going to try and go a slider that starts on the plate and slides away, right? We're going to go outside again, we're going to go outside again, but I'm going to get this guy out by coming in hard, right? And it kind of sets that guy up for one spot in one location, and then just reacting based on how it goes, right? So it's your plan can change based on what ends up coming out of your hand and where it goes, but for the most part, yeah, attacking a hitter is thinking 2 or 3 pitches ahead and what you're going to do with that. Like, what's my plan and what's my purpose with what I'm about to do? And I found, yeah, the more I worked on that as a pitcher, the more success I had. It's as opposed to just, I'm going to blow this fastball past him. Okay, did it or didn't do it. Okay, now I'm going to try and freeze him with a nasty hook, right? Okay, that did or didn't work, right? It's have a plan and work through it. I remember, I think it was a couple of years ago, Garrett Cole, like the most effective curveball in the game supposedly was Garrett Cole's. And it was not because like he had the Kershaw like amount of vertical break and was freezing guys left and right. He tunneled it and threw it just as hard as his fastball, and he would just start both in the same place, but the curveball would break off and away, right? And he would set guys up to just, I'm either gonna, you basically have to guess. I'm either gonna throw you a fastball here, or it's gonna be that slider curveball that falls off and away. And they looked the same, they were set up the same, and then it was just really, really effective. So yeah, there's guys that are good to watch for that stuff. What would you say some good guys to watch for like pitch sequencing and things like that? I think Cole is one. Corey Kluber was a really good one, with working his 2 seams on both sides of the plate with the slider coming across. You got any?
Yeah, if you can find any old video, I know Roy Halladay was pretty good about it. He always worked his cutter and his 2 seam, right? So he always talked about having like an X that they kind of had to guess from, because they were half of them rolling this way, half going that way. I think Kyle Hendricks with the Cubs does a pretty good job of it now. And that's how he's a guy who's able to succeed without, lighting up the radar guns. I think he only throws 88, 89. But some of the guys who throw hard are really good for it too. Bauer actually is another good one. Doesn't have a team right now, but that's kind of how he doesn't throw that hard, right? Bauer's only 92, 93, I think, and he strikes out everyone.
He's one of those rare guys that's increased his velo as he got older.
Not much. He throws like 6, 7 pitches, and he knows so well what he's able to throw off of other stuff. And he did win the Cy Young just this year. So, no matter what kind of pitcher you are, it's something that you can benefit from.
Yeah, that's like whenever I throw to, like, I want hitters to guess. I want hitters to feel uncomfortable in the box, right? Whenever I throw to you guys live, right? It's always, what pitch can I throw here that I think that will make you the most uncomfortable, right? For some guys that I know are very trigger happy, I'll come with this, right? And then I can see the gears turning in your head, right? What's he going to do? What's he going to do? And all of a sudden, because I flipped that first pitch curve off, now I can throw a fastball just on the outer half. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you're thinking about it so much, what's he going to come with, that you'll just end up fouling it off or making bad contact, right? So that should be your goal. And even when it comes to like it's getting outs, it should be your goal, right? Strikeouts are great, but they take a lot of pitches, right? And strikeouts looking seem really nice, but it doesn't matter. You just want outs. If a guy swings or not, it's the same results, right? So trying to set yourself up to get this knee buckling curve in there with 2 strikes, it's a lot of the time it's going to hurt you more than it helps you, because like Nelly alluded to earlier, you'll fall into patterns and you won't even get to that spot because the guy's teed off on one of the 2 fastballs he tried to sneak by him to start the at bat. So yeah, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, like, don't try and fool guys too much. Just like execute your pitches well and let them get themselves out. So yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But yeah, so that's probably going to do it for us. I'm going to send out an email tonight or tomorrow. We'll have another call on Friday. Now it's going to say, like, it's a call run by our catcher coaches, Corman and Willie, but it's not just for catchers. Okay, I've asked them to make a talk that can be geared towards everybody. That's pitchers working with catchers, right? Which is most of you. That's infielders and outfielders working with catchers on throws to the plate and things like that, covering bases, back doors, stuff like that. So don't just skip it and tune out because you think it's only for the catchers. It's how we communicate with our catchers and what's important about that. So yeah, thanks to Coach Nelly for running this one. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys later.